Welcome to Pleasurology Island. I'm Free Thought Steve. Thanks for stopping by. My title today is Cosmic Relaxation and Ganjadelic Supersex, Highway to Happiness. Cosmic Relaxation and Ganjadelic Supersex, Highway to Happiness. But before I get into that, I want to remind you that I've been encouraging you to look in the description box below the YouTube video. Look in the description box for the link there. Click on the link, take you to a Google Docs page, which will contain two summaries of the talk that you're watching. And I have been looking at these summaries myself because they help me remember what it was I said the previous time, which I don't always remember. I'm just talking away and it kind of, what did I say? Oh, I don't know. Anyway, this way I can find out what I said, which is great. It's great to have a lesson plan, even if it's after you've already taught the lesson. That's what my teaching supervisor, when I was getting a teaching credential back in 1975, in fact, the same time that I learned how to have cosmic orgasm, Ganjadelic supersex, my teaching supervisor used to criticize me because I didn't have a lesson plan made out before I went in to teach my classes, and I've never been able to do that. I make a lot of lesson plans, believe it or not. It's just that when I get into actually talking to students, or talking to you in this case, I just don't ever bother to hardly use my lesson plans. Whatever's in my head is what comes out. But in any case, now I can look back at what I said last time, and this will help me recap what I've been saying the last few times in an orderly manner, and you'll see how valuable these little summaries are if you want to remember what it is that I've said, because I say a lot of stuff in 40 minutes, and you can't be expected to remember it all. So I'm just going to pick a couple of paragraphs from the summaries, sort of that tie things together. How this resolves Reich's impasse. I was talking about Wilhelm Reich's therapeutic impasse, where he didn't quite know how to break down the body armor or dissolve the body armor in order to help people have better orgasms. Reich saw armoring and sought to break it from the outside, starting with the muscles. A more modern understanding indicates that the causal arrow runs from the emotional brain to the creation of chronic body tension. Therefore, durable change, lasting change, requires calming the emotional brain. That's where this organismic tension is coming from. And so our goal is to calm the emotional brain, thereby retraining both our brain and our body simultaneously. This combined protocol dissolves the armor by 1, physically loosening the musculature over time, 2, producing emotional catharsis or cleansing, purification, where needed to purge backlog emotion. That is, emotions that we've been holding in for a long time. And 3, retraining the emotional brain with meditation and breath work so that the emotional brain ceases to produce tonic tension, ceases to produce ongoing tension, actually chronic tension, with cannabis optionally facilitating the transition from tension to relaxation when used safely and mindfully. So that's just the AI summary of one part of the talk. It's not 100% accurate, but it's close. And now here's an actionable 7-day micro plan, a practical takeaway that AI has generated from my talk. Day 1 through 7 here. Day 1, 10 to 15 minutes of pranayama, slow rhythmic breathing to down-regulate arousal. Day 2, 15 to 20 minutes guided body scan from head to toe, proprioceptive attention to release muscular tension. Day 3, 10 minutes of Zen-style mind-clearing meditation. Practice noticing the thought stream and then letting go of it. Day 4, this is physical nurturing affection, a gentle clothes-on massage or a focused sandwich hug session to practice tactile calming and social safety cues. Day 5, combine 10 minutes pranayama, rhythmic breathing, and a 10-minute body scan to reinforce coupling together breathing and proprioception. And day 6, a social experiment. Practice relaxed, simple friendliness with a trustworthy person and notice reciprocal responses. When I'm nice to you, you'll be nice to me. Apply discernment to avoid manipulators. Watch out for manipulators. Day 7, reflect on the changes in the felt emotional flavor of consciousness. Repeat the most effective practices daily to make a habit of calm euphoria and to reduce chronic autonomic nervous system activation. Each day's practice is intended to change the emotional brain's input, the input coming in, the emotional brain's interpretation or processing of the input, and its output patterns. To change the emotional brain's input, interpretation, and output patterns gradually, reducing chronic sympathetic arousal of the autonomic nervous system. Sympathetic means the emergency branch of the autonomic nervous system, and that's when it will put adrenaline and cortisol, these stress hormones, into our blood. When we get sympathetic arousal, that is emergency arousal of the emotional brain and the autonomic nervous system. And this will improve our long-term health as well as our subjective well-being. And so I thought that was a really great, clear outline of stuff. There was another one over here, I think. Yeah. Where it's a similar thing to the exercise regimen. It talks about the practices that I have suggested and their primary effect. And it includes some stuff that actually wasn't in the other outline here. So practice daily stretching, such as Qigong exercises or yoga exercises, which I've mentioned are on a playlist on my Pleasurology YouTube channel, Pleasurology Island YouTube channel, playlist, relaxation resources. Qigong are Chinese energy exercises, and yoga, of course, is stretching exercises from India. So daily stretching and yoga is the practice, and the primary effect slowly reduces resting muscle armor and increases bodily pliability. That is, the body becomes more flexible as the muscles become more relaxed. And this leads to our body feeling good. And when our body feels good, our emotional brain calms down, and our emotional brain creates a more euphoric emotional flavor in consciousness, which is what the ultimate thing that we're aiming for is conscious euphoria. So the bodily stretching will help create a better emotional mood and more euphoria in consciousness. Pranayama, this slow rhythmic breathing, and I have some pranayama music that you can breathe to, very slow and really nice. This has the effect of lowering autonomic arousal and increasing our ability to relax our emotional circuits. Then Zen, breath counting, trying to count 10 breaths without losing track because you get lost in a fog thinking about something else. Practicing breathing in and out, that's 1 breath. In and out, that's 2 breaths. And see how long you can keep your attention focused on the breathing and see if you can keep track of your breaths all the way up to 10. But if you lose count around 6 or 7 and you can't remember which breath you're on, then the rule of the game is you have to go back to 0, start over, and try to get to 10. This Zen mind clearing and breath counting trains our attention and clears thought fog so that emotional sexual urges, or surges, I should say, surges of sexual emotion during sex, we can notice them as they occur, which allows us to avoid triggering the orgasm reflex. So Zen is useful not just for daily life, being able to pay attention to the real world and focus in very clearly on the real world, but also during sex to be aware of the sudden surges of sexual emotional energy, which when it combines with the physical pleasure sensations from the sex organs, creates this bliss cloud in consciousness that will likely trigger an orgasm unless we are paying attention at the moment that it happens and we quickly stop the physical pleasure temporarily suspend the physical pleasure, temporarily suspend all sexy thoughts, even close our eyes, and you can actually help process this surge of sexual bliss energy by making noise. Ah, oh, ah, oh, oh. That will help process that energy and push it out of the body. We want to push the energy up and out rather than trapping that energy so that it rebounds back to our brainstem where the orgasm trigger center is in the midbrain. And that orgasm trigger center then creates the orgasm reflex. And we're trying to delay that for a while until we've been able to build up a nice network of golden bliss sexual energy throughout our entire brain so that when we then trigger the orgasm reflex, that whole network flashes with tidal waves of flood of orgasm energy, which is the cosmic orgasm. Theater of catharsis, providing socially anchored, believable trigger situations for authentic emotional expression. And I have some ideas here about that I'm going to share with you. The last item here is cannabis, which amplifies emotional signals, it sort of energizes the entire emotional brain. It relaxes our muscles when we use it with muscle stretching and mindfulness. Cannabis is not a standalone cure, it mentions here. So it's a good summary. It's not 100% perfect, but it's pretty darn good. Now, the things that I want to add right now for you are some other techniques of releasing emotional energy and creating cosmic relaxation, okay? What do I mean by cosmic relaxation? We are a microcosm. The universe is a macrocosm, the large cosmos. But each of us is a microcosm. Our consciousness contains the universe. The universe really exists fully only inside a consciousness. The universe doesn't exist for itself. If it's just a bunch of inert matter with no consciousness, the universe doesn't know it exists. But we know the universe exists. We know the world exists. The world exists inside our consciousness. So we could consider our consciousness a cosmos. Now, a cosmos comes from a Greek word, and what it means is an orderly world. The opposite of a cosmos is a chaos, a disorderly situation, a disorderly state of affairs. But we're lucky enough to live in a cosmos, a world that is governed by natural laws, where things happen according to natural laws. Things are not crazy, except when human beings basically make things crazy. But the rest of the time, we live in a cosmos, and our desire should be to make our cosmos more orderly all the time. That's what we human beings have the potential to do, is to create out of a jungle, a chaotic jungle, we could create an orderly garden of the world, so to speak. Doesn't mean we don't want to leave lots of places nice and wild. We do, of course, because even a wild jungle is a very orderly place, but it's an orderly place with a lot of competition going on. And so it's quite different from when we humans create a garden or a park or a forest that is deliberately cultivated in such a way that we have harmony and beauty all through this environment that we create. That's what civilization should be about, is creating harmony and beauty around us and minimizing conflict and disorder and problems. So when we apply the idea of cosmos to ourself, and we say, okay, we are a miniature cosmos. Our consciousness is what we are. We ourselves are our consciousness, the field of consciousness that our brain produces. And we should want this consciousness to be a cosmos, an orderly consciousness, a consciousness where things are nice and stable, nice and calm, nice and peaceful and beautiful and feeling good, so that we can really enjoy living in this cosmos that is our consciousness. So when I talk about cosmic relaxation, my title today is Cosmic Relaxation and Ganjadelic Supersex, Highway to Happiness. The combination, you see, is the highway to happiness. The combination, first, we relax this cosmos that is our consciousness. Actually, we start out, our consciousness is not an orderly cosmos. Our consciousness is pretty chaotic before we start doing our self-cultivation work, before we start doing our process of ordering our consciousness, making our consciousness an orderly place, putting it in order, instead of it being chaotic and jumbled up. Because we live in our consciousness. We are never, ever going to be any place else than right smack dab in the middle of our own consciousness. Our consciousness contains a reproduction of the world outside of us, and we are also in that physical world, of course. We live in a world that is real outside of us, but where we ourselves experience life is in the center of our own consciousness produced by our own brain. So it's very important that we learn how to make that consciousness a cosmos instead of a chaos. And that is what cosmic relaxation is about. It's about calming our emotional brain, because if our emotional brain is in a state of anxiety or urgency or restlessness, if we feel restless, what we're going to do is take our attention, our conscious attention, and our conscious attention is going to be zipping around from one thing to another very quickly, whatever is the most attention-grabbing source of stimulation in our environment. If it's a television set, boom, we're going to pay attention to that. If it's a car coming this way, we might be paying attention to that. If it's an attractive person over there, the sexy person, we might be attention might go there. If it's music, we might go here. If it's a loud noise of any sort, we might, our attention will go to it, etc. We may be reading, and when we're reading, our attention is visualizing, our mind is visualizing whatever we're reading about, and we're constantly scanning a new set of words, and so our attention is constantly flowing and changing. And we can function that way. That's the way almost everybody functions almost all the time. And nevertheless, people manage to function. They manage to drive that way, unbelievably. But it's so much better if we take the time to learn how to focus our attention, control our attention, and put our attention just where we want it to be, and keep it there as long as we want it to be there until we're ready to move it to something else. And that's what Zen meditation is about. Zen meditation is about focusing our attention, keeping it focused on something, like listening to music. That's what I like to do. I like to lie in my recliner chair as comfortable as possible, and I have on my pranayama, my breathing music, this nice slow music, and it contains Tibetan singing bowls. Boom, boom. But I've gone on the computer and taken the singing bowl sound, and I've tuned it to the Western octave so that I can fit the singing bowl sound in with actual Western musical chords. And I have some instruments playing along with the singing bowl, and I have choir sounds in the background. The choir is singing the chord along with the singing bowl itself. The bowls are brass bowls about like that. You just strike them once and they make this beautiful tone that just kind of hangs out in the air for a long time. And there's a little drum beat, a slow drum beat. And so the music goes along, and there's a lead guitar being played along with it. That's kind of an ethereal guitar. It doesn't have any specific melody that it's playing. It's playing certain licks, that match the chord and the singing bowl and the choirs. So it all fits together. And the drum beat allows you to count how long you're holding your breath. You can breathe in for 4 counts, hold the breath for 4 counts, breathe out for 4 counts, and relax for 4 counts. And you can do any variation, but the rhythm of the music gives you a simple way to count your breathing. And that helps calm us down just to do breathing in for 8 counts, breathing out for 8 counts, breathing in for 4 counts, breathing out for 4 counts. Just doing that over a period of time, doing nothing but that, breathing in and out slowly, that calms down our emotional brain, which in turn calms down our autonomic nervous system, the part of our nervous system that controls heartbeat and breathing and digestion and some of the stress hormones and so forth. And at the same time that we're listening to that pranayama music, breathing in and breathing out, we can be focusing our attention on that guitar that's playing, because the guitar doesn't play the same notes in any 2 successive measures. You can never tell just what that guitar is going to be playing in the next measure. And it's always very nice. It's always very tasteful because it was recorded by a professional musician, and it fits very well with the chords. But it gives you something to focus your attention on. It gives me something to focus. As I lie there with my eyes closed, I can listen to these guitar notes and see if I can hear each guitar note the moment that it's being played. If I'm thinking about something else, I will only half hear the guitar, and a lot of notes will go by that I won't even notice. And then I'll say, oh yeah, I need to return my attention to the guitar sound. And as soon as I do that, then I hear each note very distinctly and vividly the moment that it's being played, as long as I keep my full attention focused on the music. And so this is a wonderful attention training game to play, and it calms us down emotionally. It allows us to become really aware of the difference in our consciousness when we are thinking, and our consciousness is filled with thought fog, all these scenes and images that float there. And when we have a clear mind, when we have cleared away that thought stream and our mind is nice and crisp and clear and transparent, and whatever is coming from the outside, we can perceive with pure transparency. And that is something that if you ever take the heavy psychedelics like LSD or psilocybin, what they do is they clear away that thought fog. The thought fog is produced by part of the brain called the default mode network. And the default mode network is when we're just sort of spacing out. We're just thinking about stuff. We're not doing anything particular with our brain. So there's thoughts running through our brain all the time, and we're in a thought fog. The default mode network is the circuitry in the brain that's operating when we're in a thought fog. But what LSD or psilocybin does is it temporarily shuts down, it sort of dampens down the default mode. It's not that we quit thinking entirely, but consciousness is not filled with the images that the default mode usually produces. And we can see the outside world. It's as though we were looking at the world through a pane of glass, and it had a bunch of mist on the inside, because we'd been breathing a lot, and our breath had fogged up like the inside of a windshield, But then LSD is like taking a cloth and just wiping away the fog from the windshield, and all of a sudden there's this world outside there that we can see so much more vividly than we usually do. And we can see how beautiful it is. We can really pay attention to it so much better that it's like having the doors of perception opened, which is where Aldous Huxley got the title for his book about taking mescaline, The Doors of Perception. And that actually goes back to the English poet William Blake, who talked about, and he seemed to have had a naturally psychedelic consciousness. And he talked about how amazing when the doors of perception are cleansed, how we can see the world in a grain of sand. And that's something that somebody on LSD would say, boy, I can see the world in a grain of sand. It's fantastic. So anyway, cannabis, when combined with Zen meditation, Zen mind clearing, once we've learned how to do it, cannabis can give us that same psychedelic experience of the beauty of the outside world, or the beauty of a painting, a work of art, if we're looking at something like that, and certainly the beauty of music. When you combine cannabis and Zen, you are able to dampen down that default mode network that creates the thought fog. We can dampen down the default mode network and focus on the pure sensations that are coming in. And if they're beautiful sensations, whether it be music or natural beauty or making love, the sensations of making love, all the sensations come directly into our emotional brain, and our emotional brain can generate euphoria in response to them. Euphoria is the emotional brain's response to something beautiful. In fact, that is the definition of something that's beautiful. If you perceive something, no matter what it is, and it gives you a feeling of euphoria, just to perceive that, that is a beautiful perception. Whether it's something you're looking at, something you're feeling, like if you're swimming through the water and the feeling of the water on your body makes you feel euphoric, that's a beautiful physical sensation of gliding through wonderful water that's caressing your body all over. Getting a massage is a beautiful experience because it creates euphoria. So, that's Zen mind clearing, very important, and calmness. We're trying to create a cosmic relaxation. We're trying to create a relaxed cosmic consciousness, a consciousness that is harmonious and beautiful and calm and orderly. And Zen is one of the ways of doing that. Relaxing our body is one of the ways of doing that, because our body feels beautiful. I mean, not in the sense of the way it looks necessarily. It just feels beautiful to us when it's relaxed and feeling good. And it creates euphoria in our consciousness. So these things go together. All these things go together to create cosmic relaxation, which then in turn is the gateway to Ganjadelic supersex, which I've talked about before, the cosmic orgasm, and leading up to it, long, prolonged periods of pre-orgasmic bliss that we allow to fill our entire consciousness each time we have a sudden surge of emotional sexual arousal energy, when we get particularly turned on, and that emotional arousal energy mixes with the physical pleasure from our sex organs, that releases this golden cloud of sexual bliss into consciousness, and we have to relax and allow that to expand outward, expand downward to our body, and breathe out, make noise if necessary, to get that energy out of our body, and prevent triggering the orgasm reflex by sending the energy out instead of trapping it so that it rebounds back down to the orgasm trigger center, back in the brainstem and midbrain. All right, so that's part of our goal. And part of our goal is, in order to calm down our emotional brain, we need to go through 2 phases. The first phase is intensive emotional catharsis. That's what I did, and this is what cannabis can help us with if we combine it with muscle stretching and loosening up exercises that loosen up the body armor that is helping us suppress those emotions. And then we're high on cannabis, and we're in some kind of a situation, hopefully a social situation, where we can express those emotions without any inhibitions at all, let out all the contained and unexpressed emotional energy that we've been carrying around for our entire lives. So that's the period of intensive emotional cleansing or catharsis. And after we've done that, then on a daily basis, what we're trying to do is establish a habit of the emotional brain being calm instead of anxious and urgent. And what we need to do is try and maintain a certain level of emotional equilibrium. And we're not trying to forcibly keep ourselves calm, because that's a problem. That's a neurotic form of tension. If we inhibit all of our emotions and deliberately force ourselves to never feel anything, that is pathological. And that's what we're trying to undo. We're trying to get rid of those inhibitions. That's our cognitive brain, our intellectual brain, from indeed our forehead area, suppressing the natural responses of the emotional brain. And we need to lift that inhibition so that our emotional brain can respond naturally to whatever is happening. And when nothing is happening emotionally strong, no emotionally dramatic situations of any sort are happening, then we want our emotional brain to be just calm and relaxed and not generating any particular kind of emotional energy. It's what I call calm euphoria. And sort of the father of pleasure science, Epicurus, the Greek philosopher who lived around 300 BC and thereafter, Epicurus said that the highest form of pleasure that human beings can enjoy is simply being free from physical pain and free from any sort of emotional anxiety or urgency, so that we have calm emotions in a comfortable, relaxed body. Now, quite obviously, and Epicurus said, okay, that's the pinnacle of human happiness. But quite obviously, Epicurus didn't know about Ganjadelic supersex. He didn't know about cosmic orgasms, or he would have said, oh, by the way, yes, calm euphoria and Ganjadelic supersex. All right, those are the two highest forms of human happiness that there are. But poor old Epicurus never got to experience Ganjadelic supersex. But that's what we want to do. But anyway, day in and day out, when we're not in a sexual situation or any other kind of dramatic situation, we want our emotional brain to be calm, just relaxed and calm, and ready to respond in a natural way to anything that might happen. If something scary comes along, some real threat comes along, our emotional brain wants to be able to respond to it immediately and get us out of the way of that threat as fast as possible. And we want to just be able to be relaxed and let our emotional brain do that if it needs to in an emergency. If something funny happens, we want our emotional brain to be able to laugh in a totally spontaneous way, not a forced way, but we're laughing because we can't help it, because whatever happened was so funny that it just makes us laugh, or whatever somebody said was so funny it just makes us laugh. We're not trying to laugh. We're letting our emotional brain generate a surge of laughter energy. And that laughter energy, we let it flow through us in a relaxed way, and we laugh just as much and just as hard as the energy coming from our emotional brain wants to make us laugh. We don't laugh any harder than that. All we have to do is relax, and our emotional brain will make us laugh just as hard as the situation is funny or as the joke was funny. And that's the same thing we want to do with an orgasm, a sexual orgasm. See, laughter is a humor orgasm, a spontaneous outsurge of energy from the emotional brain. And an orgasm is also a spontaneous outsurge from the emotional brain. And when we decide that we want to trigger an orgasm, and once we do trigger that orgasm, we don't want to either stifle the orgasm, hold it back by being tense while we're having the orgasm. We don't want to do that. And on the other hand, we don't want to try and force the orgasm to be more than it is. We don't need to. Particularly if we've built up this powerful network of bliss energy in our brain before we trigger the orgasm reflex, all we have to do at that point is sit back and let our emotional brain make us laugh sexually just as hard as the arousal value of the sexual situation actually feels to our emotional brain. The sexual situation will feel sexy in a certain way to our emotional brain, and when we trigger the orgasm reflex, our emotional brain will spontaneously generate as much sexual arousal energy as that situation deserves, and that will flow through our orgasm and create the power and energy of our orgasm. All we have to do is relax and let it happen, just the same way that we relax and let ourselves laugh when something is genuinely funny. So that's how we use cosmic relaxation to enjoy super euphoric sex. We use it by letting the arousal occur gradually enough that we can contain it and sustain it without triggering an orgasm reflex for prolonged periods of high arousal bliss. And that's the first way that we use cosmic relaxation. And the second way we use cosmic relaxation is during orgasm itself, that we totally relax from head to toe and let the orgasm thrash us. literally let the orgasm flow through us and make us move in any way that it wants to. We surrender to the orgasm, and however the orgasm makes us want to move, that's how we move. We don't force it. We don't need to help it happen, as with one exception. It's good to keep the physical pleasure that we're feeling going through orgasm. And so we want to keep whatever movements we're doing to give us that physical pleasure. We want to keep those physical movements going throughout the orgasm. So if we're having intercourse with someone, we want to keep thrusting, for instance, throughout that. If we're masturbating, we want to keep stroking throughout the orgasm, and if we're getting a blowjob, we want the person who's giving us the blowjob to keep on doing it throughout the orgasm so that the pleasure keeps coming in. So that what happens is the muscles of the pelvis contracting in the orgasmic contractions are sending nerve impulses up to the brain, up the spinal cord to the brain. And at the same time, the skin nerve endings of our sex organs are continuing to send pleasurable friction and moisture sensations and warmth sensations from our skin, the skin of our sex organs, up to the brain. And those physical sensations and the contractions of the pelvic muscles blend in the emotional brain with the emotional arousal energy added to it. So you've really got three ingredients there in your orgasmic waves of pleasure. Each orgasmic wave of pleasure is made up of a combination of emotional arousal, orgasm muscle contractions deep in the pelvis, and surface sensations from the sexual organs of physical pleasure. Those are the three ingredients that go in to an orgasm and create this explosion in our consciousness. It's an explosion of pleasure that I call the cosmic orgasm. Now, I'll just finish up by mentioning a few techniques for relaxation and for emotional release that I didn't mention before. And what we're trying to do with our emotional brain when we're in just going through a normal day is that if some kind of distressing situation arises, either in our mind or in reality, something that stresses us out, any kind of a little stress situation, no matter what it is, will release a certain amount of stress energy from the emotional brain. And if we have developed our self-awareness, our emotional self-awareness, by doing Zen and being relaxed, if we've developed our self-awareness enough, we will feel that little surge of stress energy being released by our emotional brain into our consciousness. And as soon as we feel that little surge of stress energy, we want to expel it. We want to get it out of our system so that we can relax again. So what I call this is emotional flow through. We want the emotional energy to flow through us and right out of us so that it doesn't stay inside of us and keep us tense. And so some of these exercises that I'm going to talk about are emotional flow through exercises. Sighing is the simplest. I get stressed whenever I remember something embarrassing that I did 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 5 years ago, last week. I remember something embarrassing that I did. My emotional brain gets stressed and, Steve, how could you be so stupid? You're such an idiot. And I will just go, You need to practice sighing. It's one of the hardest things. It seems like it ought to be really simple because there's not much to it, just sighing. But we've been taught not to make noises unless we're talking. It's easy for us to make noises when we're talking, but we're very inhibited about making nonverbal noises. And that's what the voice originally evolved for, was making nonverbal sounds. It might be any kind of sound. That would be a frustration sound. You know. So anyway, we need to regain our ability to make noise without any words to it, solely for the purpose, exclusively for the purpose of releasing emotional energy, for emotional flow through, so that we don't create an emotional pressure cooker inside of us. An emotional pressure cooker is when you've got the lid on and you've got the heat underneath, and the water just gets hotter and hotter and builds up pressure, you know, and that's what's bad for us physically and health-wise, is to have an emotional pressure cooker going on inside of us all the time. So what we want to do after we've learned how to basically relax is, whenever we feel a surge of stress energy, sigh it away. You can even sigh without opening your mouth, which is like humming. And it's good to practice sighing, so that when you're having sex and you need to release energy in order not to have an orgasm, you're already in the habit of making noise with your voice without any words. And you can just go, and let out as much energy as you need to avoid having an orgasm. So sighing is one way we can do emotional flow through and keep our emotional equilibrium. We keep our emotional temperature as low as possible. That's what it means to be cool. To be emotionally cool, you know, is to be relaxed and therefore fairly tolerant of what's going on around us. You know, we're not all uptight. We don't feel like, oh my God, if things don't go just exactly the way I want them, it's going to be a catastrophe, so I've got to make sure I control the situation. All right, we don't want to do that. If we're relaxed, we say, okay, this situation could go a number of ways. There are other people involved. They need to be happy as well as me. They may have good ideas as well as me. I don't have to control this situation. I'll sort of go with the flow here and do whatever is the most natural and relaxed thing to do. So another way you can release energy, or swearing, I like to swear. You know, if there's something that makes me angry, I like to swear immediately and get it over with and get it out of my system, instead of just silently fuming about it. This mostly happens in traffic, when somebody does something stupid in traffic that is dangerous and that they shouldn't do, and it makes me angry. But there are other occasions when I get angry too, and I have a particular set of swear words which seems to work very effectively for me. And you don't have to adopt my set of swear words. You can make up your own set of swear words. But I usually say, God damn, son of a bitch, motherfucking piece of shit. It has a good rhythm to it, okay? Has a good little rhythm to it. And it's very satisfying, particularly at the end where you go, piece of shit. You can really hit those. Goddamn motherfucking piece of shit. See, it's a nice little rhythm. Da, 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 da. Okay. And by the time I've said that, and then I sigh a few times maybe, and of course, my blood pressure has gone up for a moment while I've expelled this energy, but then I can calm down and go, okay, bygones, all right? You know, that situation's over. I've expressed how I felt about it. I can go on driving through the traffic. And of course, I'm not saying this face to face to the driver who did that. I'm pretending I'm saying it to him. So, you goddamn stupid motherfucking son of a bitch. I might say that to him, but of course they can't hear me. So what it does, it doesn't hurt them, but it helps me do flow through on that anger that was raised in me by the dangerous thing they did, which actually made me frightened, which made me angry at them for doing that dangerous thing. And instead of carrying that anger around with me, I swear it out, let it go, emotional flow through, and then I can calm down and I'm all right again. There are other ways of letting off stress. One of my favorites is one I do sometimes when I'm doing yoga for some reason, and I think of something stressful. It's hard to do. It's an advanced stress reduction technique. It's called flubber lips or horsey lips. The cheeks are inflated. The cheeks have got to be relaxed and the lips have got to be relaxed, and you got to put a certain amount of air pressure through it, but you don't have to involve your vocal cords. You're just involving the air going out and the flapping lips. So that's a good one too for releasing emotional energy. And as I've said, if you really want to be happy, you can't worry about being conventional and about what other people might think. You got to say, I don't give a shit what other people might think. It's my consciousness and how I feel in my consciousness that counts for me. And as long as I'm not actually hurting them, even if I'm doing something unfamiliar like that they might wonder what the hell that is, if they want to ask me, I'll be glad to tell them, oh, I was just letting off stress. That's one of my stress relaxation techniques. And if you want, I can show you how to do it. See, that's the best thing. Volunteer to show them how to do it, because it's a good thing for them to learn, and they will immediately leave you alone. Oh, never mind, that's okay, I got something else to do, fine. You go ahead. Okay, last two things I will leave you with, or three things, okay. Two things for getting rid of anger particularly, which is a very important thing to get the anger out of us, because we all have way too much anger inside and it poisons our relationships with each other. So, hit the bed. Hit the bed. Get in a room where there's a bed, a mattress, and you have either a tennis racket, which you can hold in your hands, lift overhead, and bring down on the bed as hard as you can with the flat of the tennis head, the racket, whomp, whomp, hitting that mattress as hard as you can, and you visualize whoever it is you're angry at, and it doesn't matter if it's past, present, or even future, anybody that really makes you angry, for whatever reason, you have the right to be angry at people and to get that anger out of yourself. And you imagine their face on the bed, and you hit the bed, and you make a lot of nice loud, say that 3 times fast, a lot of nice loud noise. A lot of nice loud noise. That's a good diction drill. You make a lot of nice loud noise. Good for the L's and N's while you're doing it. Because that's what helps get emotional energy out, is making noise, as well as the physical energy of hitting the bed and pretending that you're hitting that person that you're angry at. And you hit him until you're not angry at him any longer. The other thing you can do, if you don't happen to have a tennis racket, get a bath towel, take it the long way like this, take it the long way and roll it up the long way around, so that you roll it up and it's as long as possible, but it's not too thick, maybe about that thick around, and you fold it over so that it's in a loop and you're holding both ends, and you use that same way you would the tennis racket. You bring it up and you bring it down, whomp, 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 on the bed, okay? Now, warning, the towel, when it hits the bed, may bounce back and hit you in the face. It's probably not going to hurt you too bad, but it may just make you angrier, and you may just hit the bed even harder, which is okay because that's what you want to do anyway. But I'm just warning you, that might happen. It's happened to me. And the other thing that might happen that you want to look out for is when you're bringing back, particularly if it's the tennis racket, if you're bringing back to swing it overhead and then hit the bed, you want to check the ceiling above you and make sure there's no lamp fixtures above you that you would break with your tennis racket or the towel. Okay, because I think I've had that happen to me too. So you don't want to do that. Check and make sure there's no lamp fixtures you're going to break. And then if you have neighbors that are going to get worried by hearing you shouting and yelling and stuff, you might want to reassure them at some point that you're just doing therapy. Okay, you're doing some personal anger release therapy so that you're not going to get angry at real people in real life. And so they don't need to worry. You're not in a domestic dispute. You're not beating up anybody. Nobody's getting hurt. You don't have to call the ambulance or the police or anything like that. You might want to let them know about that if you have close neighbors. Don't worry about it. If you hear me doing that, it's just because I'm doing emotional release work. And of course, if you don't want to worry about the neighbors, there's the last technique for emotional release I'll tell you about. You can take a car and drive it out someplace lonely at night, perhaps somewhere where nobody's going to hear you, and you open the car door and you just slam the car door as hard as you can. And you do that repeatedly. Slam the car door and yell while you're doing it. And, that's another good way. Usually car doors are strong enough to take that. You want to make sure that your car is pretty sturdy when you do that, but usually a car door is made to be slammed. All right. And so then, after we've done our intensive emotional cleansing, we want to calm down again. And this is where clothed massage is good, clothes-on massage, as well as sandwich hugs. But say you're by yourself, you have nobody to give a sandwich hug to or receive one from, or a massage. Try Tai Chi. Tai Chi is good for calming down. Now, I learned Tai Chi from a book that Esalen Institute published, and I read the instructions on the page, and I looked at the still pictures on the pages, and I tried to do the movement according to the instructions, the written instructions, and these still photographs. And it turned out I was doing the movement wrong. It wasn't right. I wasn't doing it quite correctly. And you know what? It didn't make any fucking difference at all. It didn't matter whether I was doing it right or not, because the point of doing Tai Chi, for me, was just to slow the fuck down. I had spent my life hurrying through life. I was in the habit of hurry that just about all of us learn because our society teaches us to always have more shit to do than we can possibly have time to do it in. And so we're hurrying. We're on a schedule all day long, and we get in the habit of hurry. And we're just going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing all day long. And we never stop and slow down. So that's what Tai Chi is good for. See, Tai Chi is these very simple movements. I used to teach Tai Chi class, and this is as easy a Tai Chi movement as you can get. Raising your arms and lowering them. When you come up, the wrists are bent down, the elbows are bent a little bit, your shoulders are kind of relaxed and easy. You bring the hands up to shoulder level. And you turn the palms forward and you bring the hands down. And that's all you're doing. But the point is, you're doing it really slowly. And you just keep doing it. See, how slow can I do this without completely stopping? And then if you want to, you can make up your movements. You can make the hands go from side to side instead, like that. See, one hand facing forward, the other hand facing in, and they come across, and then they change places and come across again. But it doesn't matter if you do it right or if you do it wrong. You do anything you want. You can push. It doesn't matter what you do. You can make a little circle like that. The movements can be totally simple. The essence is slow down. Try and just do it as slowly as possible. And that will teach your consciousness what it's like to not be rushing through life from one thing to the next. How to break the habit of hurry and learn how to be in the present moment. Tai Chi. Thanks for listening. Make sure to check out the summaries of the talk in the description box below the YouTube video. And I'll talk to you again real soon.